What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. Interesting new updated numbers as Marvel's The Marvels seems to be spiraling endlessly out of control as new box office numbers say that this may be the biggest flop in MCU history, which is saying a lot because you had films like The Eternals, which lost somewhere to $200 to $300 million. I mean, you've had some early flops in the MCU history, perhaps the Edward Norton Hulk. I'm not sure. I'm sure their budgets were much, much smaller then. The stakes are much, much larger here. As we know, the Marvel's estimated budget is somewhere around $275 million. So the rule of thumb is then to double that to include marketing and so on. So you have a budget of $550 million. Even this film, meaning this film's got to make $800 million to $1 billion to break even. You wonder if they're even going to release it after these new numbers came out. By the way, quick reminder, they're not up yet, but remember, Coffee Brand Coffee is your Christmas headquarters. We sell out every year for our Christmas gift baskets, so be watching your inbox for when they go on sale later this week. If you want to try a sample, try our fall flavors of butterscotch toffee, the pumpkin pie, the spiked jack-o'-lantern, promo code The Quartering will save. Now, this is an updated box office prediction number as of Friday. The Marvel's pre-sales are now pacing behind The Flash. That DC movie that completely tanked because it had the weirdo Ezra, whatever his name, in there. Remember that? The Flash, which opened at just $50 million. Now, again, these are huge numbers for like a normal movie, right? These are massive numbers for a movie that doesn't have a ridiculous budget. But this movie, I mean, does have a ridiculous budget. It has a massive budget, one that it's got almost no chance of making up. Now, again, we could be surprised. We've got, another week or so till this movie comes out. Perhaps the writers and actors strike ends and Brie Larson can hit the road with those sweet sweater puppies and get out there and push her movie. But it sure seems like nobody even really wants to. You see this article here based on that. Captain Marvel now tracking lower than The Flash. This is from World of Real. Things are looking grimmer and grimmer by the day for the Marvels. Last week I reported that based on internal tracking, I was seeing $45 to $50 million opening for the latest MCU installment, which I think if it hits $50 million, it's probably got an outside chance of having some legs. It's not really competing against too much right now. So Aquaman comes out later this year, but there's not a lot going on, although there's another big Disney movie coming out the following week, which who knows what they're going to do. But Deadline is now reporting that pre-sales for the Marvels are reportedly pacing behind that of The Flash, which ended up with a $55 million three-day opening, by all accounts a box office disaster for Warner Brothers. If the Marvels does indeed open to $45 to $50 million range, it will be the worst opening weekend in history for the MCU. The current worst is The Eternals at $51 million. Now, if it's anywhere near The Eternals, that would, I assume, by all reasonable counts, would be an absolute disaster. That movie had, I think, an even bigger budget, somewhere around, I might have been similar budget. The fact of the matter is with Marvel, they have an out. They have a future. It just doesn't involve $250, $300 million movies. According to Deadline, the film's low box office numbers could be due to the strike that bars actors from promoting the film. It could be partly be that, but one cannot dismiss superhero fatigue as another factor. The Marvel starring Brie Larson is being released this coming Friday, November 10th. In just 4 days, this movie's dropping. I don't know if you have a situation where, I'm not sure if the strike ended today, which I think the studios made their last best and final offer this past weekend. If the strike ended tomorrow, could you deploy a worldwide marketing blitz in 3 days? I don't know. I saw quite a few commercials for the Marvels during the NFL football season, or during the football game yesterday. I'm not sure that Disney is throwing as much money as previously thought into this marketing, because I don't really see it that much anywhere. I don't see big big giant billboards. See, this is how the MCU dies, not with a bang, but with a whimper. It started with a whimper too, if you ask me, peaking with perhaps a muffled groan here and there. Marvel's ran its course. The TV shows is what killed them. They're all awful. I don't disagree that the TV shows were bad. I had no interest whatsoever in the TV shows, and even Loki. Loki is kind of universally liked, but season 2 opened up. The ratings for season 2 were significantly lower than season 1. Superhero fatigue is real. Do I think, there's reports of, oh my God, they're going to re-sign Robert Downey Jr. I don't know if that works. I don't know if that fixes. Look at Screen Rant. The Marvel's ticket sales are lower than 2 of DC's biggest box office bombs. I mean, to me, the idea of pre-sale tickets is bizarre. I suppose if you wanted to see it Thursday night, and usually here where I live, I think there's usually like a midnight show. There might be even like a 7 or 10 o'clock show. Those usually fill up pretty fast. So I suppose if you wanted to, you'd be pre-ordering that. But I can't think of another. I mean, where I live out in the middle of nowhere, but there's like 3 pretty big theaters that are all equidistant from me. I'm driving a half hour no matter where I go. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm finding that I can find good seats at any one ticket. So I never pre-order. I did for the Batman movie, but that's because I wanted to see that on opening night. Well, already expected to be one of the franchise's lowest box office openings, the Marvel's ticket pre-sales placed the MCU sequel lower than 2 of DCEU's biggest bombs. The movie acts as a sequel to 2019's Captain Marvel, as well as a follow-up to Disney Plus's Miss Marvel and WandaVision. WandaVision was one of those shows that, it actually started out good. It did. I want to give it credit where credit is due. But then they kept wanting, the writers didn't understand that Wanda was actually the villain. And they kept wanting me to feel bad for Wanda. And I'm like, no, Wanda's actually the villain here. And so you got this weird, you started out feeling bad for her. And then you're like, no, wait, actually Wanda's the bad guy in this show. So I don't know if that's really what they intended, but it had a lot of potential. I love the aesthetic. But then they had, this Monica Rambeau, which literally nobody cares about her. Miss Marvel. Okay, Miss Marvel, again, it's one of those things where Zoomers like her. She's a young character. And honestly, Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan, not Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, sorry. The show was pretty well received. Now, not a lot of people watched it because when you think about it, people that grew up watching the MCU, the people that want to get in and, go see these movies, we're in our 40s now. This trip started 20 years ago. We don't care about Miss Marvel. We care about Iron Man, Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Black Widow. These characters are Thor. Even the Guardians of the Galaxy were pretty fringe, and I'm not sure they would have been as successful without perfect casting. And really, the first movie, nearly perfect writing. And charismatic lead. Who isn't a total loser, which is what they did to Thor, but even the last third one, by the time the third one came out, and I loved the first one, I thought the second Guardians of the Galaxy was pretty good too. I wasn't even interested in seeing the third one. I was like, oh, it's going to be another joke. No real consequences. Joke. And I was like, well, I'm not going to pay to see that movie. And that's what you're going to get with the Marvels almost certainly too. And look, Brie Larson was, there's no taking away. It's like once you're a Super Bowl champion, you're always a champion or an NBA champion. Brie Larson's Captain Marvel movie made $1 billion. You can't take that away from it. It was seen as, of course, required reading for Endgame, but people still paid to see it. And the reviews were middling. But it's not like everyone hated it. I'm sure there are lots of people that liked the movie. I've certainly come around to Brie Larson. She hasn't done anything offensive in a lot of years. I don't think that Brie is like the negative box office draw that she was back then. I mean, I can't really even think of anything stupid she said in years. So She's not the one keeping me from this movie. It's that the movie's for kids and it's for little girls. That's who the movie's for. And the question is whether or not they give a damn about this movie, whether they're going to show up for the theaters. You know, I mean, again, Miss Marvel was well liked by the people that saw it, but hardly anybody watched it. With less than a week remaining until its release, Deadline has revealed that new ticket pre-sales numbers for the Marvels, the MCU sequel, is currently tracking around 70 million in its opening weekends. That's the thing. These people are saying, 50, 45, 50. I don't believe. Like, look, I promise you, I don't believe that this movie, we've seen the headlines, and it's going to be 35, 45, 50 million. There's no way. I'm not ready to believe that yet. I still think this movie probably will do 70 to 80 million because it would just be so unprecedented to have a Marvel movie with an established star do so poorly. There's really nothing else, competing. But if you look at the Eternals, they're looking at global. That's why. And the opening was not only behind the franchise worst reviewed movie, The Eternals, which opened to 71.2 million, but also behind two of DCEU's biggest tanks, Black Adam and The Flash. Will the Marvels be the first MCU's first proper box office bomb? Well, I disagree because The Eternals was a proper box office bomb. That movie lost hundreds of millions of dollars. The Marvels is not only rivaling DC's lowest figures, but also eyeing potentially one of the worst overall box office outings for an MCU film to date. While The Eternals, with one of the lowest in over the decade, it still performed modestly in the long run, going on over to gross $402 million against its $236 million budget. So that means it lost, if you had 500, if you double that, it's 500 million. It probably lost only about 100 million. So I overstated that. The lowest opening for a franchise to date still remains 2008's The Incredible Hulk, which similarly was deemed a modest success, ultimately grossing $264 million against its reported $150 million budget. Well, again, that seems like it would have lost money. Given early reports have indicated the movie's net budget is $220 million after receiving a massive filming subsidy. Of course, the Marvel's ticket pre-sales and early box office projections do not bode well for the movie's chances of avoiding becoming one of MCU's biggest box office tanks. Well, it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. We'll have to, I guess, tune in and see how this box office goes. I'm not going to, pay to see. I'm not going to pay to see this movie just so I can dunk on it. It's not for me, and I'm beyond that. But it'll be interesting to see how it performs. And I'll be questioning, hey, do you think this is the end of the MCU? It certainly seems like this is. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do leave a like on it, and we'll talk to you again real soon.